So we're taking a moment today to acknowledge the passing of a true television icon, Richard Chamberlain.
Yeah.
He died at 90, which the New York Times just reported.
Wow, 90, that's, ooh.
Incredible career.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you think about him as the, king of the miniseries.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Our deep dive today, though, isn't just going to be, sort of a memorial or recap of, his life, but really like a look into why his work resonated so deeply with so many people.
Absolutely. And he had such range, right? I mean, you think about that really intense early fame from Dr. Kildare.
Right.
And then he moves into these massive, culturally significant roles. It's fascinating to think about what kind of impact that had on him, but also just on television, on the viewers.
Yeah. And speaking of those big roles, let's jump right into that King of the Miniseries era. Like the 70s and 80s,
Yeah.
They were just saturated with these long-form TV events. Shogun, the Thorn, Centennial.
Yeah, huge.
Huge. They weren't just popular shows. They were...
cultural moments.
Yeah, genuine cultural phenomena.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to think about why those miniseries had so much sway back then, in a pre-internet, pre-cable landscape.
Right.
I mean, these were shared national experiences. Everyone was watching, everyone was discussing them, and
water cooler talk.
Exactly. And Chamberlain was so often right at the center of these, embodying these huge narratives.
Yeah, it is really hard to imagine that level of shared viewership today, where everything's so fragmented.
Everyone's watching their own thing.
Yeah, and he wasn't just some, matinee idol in these epics. Like, the New York Times highlighted how he kind of evolved beyond that, beyond just the romantic lead.
Oh, totally.
I remember seeing him in those later roles and being struck by the difference,
Yeah, that's a key point. I mean, think about Father Ralph.
Oh, in the Thornbirds.
The Thornbirds, exactly. This is a character who's grappling with all this intense internal conflict, and Chamberlain, he brought this really magnetic quality to that struggle, to that, inner turmoil.
And he won a Golden Globe for it, right?
Yeah, Golden Globe, exactly. Which is, I think, it shows a depth that went beyond, just simple charm. He was a really good actor.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because you think about that initial fame with Dr. Kildare, which the Times talks about.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
Huge, right.
Yeah.
That brings with it all the pressures of early stardom.
Oh, so much pressure, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes his later career choices even more interesting.
It does, because it raises the question of how do actors navigate that kind of success so early on, right?
Right.
What's clear from the Times, though, is that there was this consistent drive to push himself artistically, moving into Shakespeare, and then those later more complex TV roles.
You wanted to stretch.
He wanted to stretch, absolutely. And there's a quote from him, I think, where he talks about pursuing roles that pushed his boundaries.
That speaks to a real dedication to the craft, to acting.
It really does. And it wasn't just in his career, right? I mean, if you look at his life more broadly, his later openness about his sexuality was quite significant as well.
Oh, for sure. Especially considering the time period.
Yeah. I mean, back then, for someone with his level of fame and recognition...
should come out.
Yeah, to live authentically like that and to actually speak publicly about those experiences, that was a big deal. And the Times really emphasizes that, suggesting it paved the way for others in the industry to do the same.
No question. It all adds up, I think, to this lasting legacy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He brought so much joy and drama to audiences over decades.
Oh, sure. And such a wide range of roles.
As the Times puts it, he really left his mark.
He did. So while the King of the Miniseries is, no longer with us, his impact on television history, I think, it remains profound. It'll be remembered by so many people. Our condolences to his family, his friends, all the fans out there.
Absolutely. And for you listening, it's interesting to consider how different our current landscape is, right? This on-demand, fragmented viewing.
Everyone on their phones, yeah.
Compared to that era of these shared miniseries events,
It's a different time.
What kind of long-form storytelling today, if any, do you think captures that kind of that collective cultural moment, even if it's in a different way?
That's a good question.
Yeah, something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.